As Deborah mentioned, we're going to have certain time limits on questions and responses. Ideally, this meeting here tonight is going to last 2 hours, not to exceed 2 hours. Representatives on each side of the issue will have 5 minutes for opening statements, and then another 5 minutes for closing statements, but I think the proponents of this have revised that a little bit. They want to have a few extra minutes on the opening statement and a little bit less on the closing statements. So, Mr. Boyle, this is for your information. I believe on that opening statement, it's going to be 7 minutes? 7 minutes on their opening, and then when they close it out, it'll be 3 minutes, as opposed to the advocates against this will have 5 and 5. Questions will be taken directly from the audience with a time limit of 2 minutes per question and 2 minutes per answer. And then if there's a rebuttal, we're going to limit that to 60 seconds. If a majority of us leave here tonight feeling that everyone was treated fairly and that perhaps we learned something here this evening, then I feel I will have accomplished my task. So, Deborah, who's going to go first on the opening statements? Okay. Mr. Weed, representing the hospital board, is going to make the opening statement. Mr. John W. Weed.
Thank you, Judge. Good evening, friends. I know many of you know me a long time. It's nice to be here. I'm John Weed. I do not now, nor am I ever in any official capacity with St. Mark's Medical Center, but I'm very interested in it. I need about 30 minutes to open. With 7, I'm going to have to run my old body around the bases quick. Try to give you an outline of something you need to know. You can fill in the blanks during question and answer period. St. Mark's faced funding problems from day one. Medicare does not fund properly in the rural area. It was unrealistic always, does not increase, costs do. Effective January 1, 2011, and my information comes from the public record, principally Form 990s, which nonprofits file with the Internal Revenue Service. January 1, 2011, St. Mark's was transferred to Community Hospital Corporation in Plano, Texas, just up from Dallas. Community Hospital Corporation is a 501c3. It has some very highly compensated executives, but they're not compensated by Community Hospital Corporation. They're compensated by Community Hospital Consulting. There is another for-profit subsidiary, Community Hospital Health Assurance, who has a P.O. box in Grand Cayman. Community Hospital Corporation reserved the right to appoint the board of directors of St. Mark's Medical Center and to remove that board with or without cause. I suggest to you that that board is a captive, you know what that means, of Community Hospital Corporation. Community Hospital Corporation reserves the right to make every important business decision at St. Mark's, including a budget of operating and capital expenses. The St. Mark's Board is given authority to spend $25,000 single or in a series of transactions in a year. That's less than 0.1% of the operating budget. With the passage of the Fayette County Hospital District, Community Hospital Corporation has agreed to transfer St. Mark's Medical Center. When I say transfer, they call it sole member status. You and I would know it as sole shareholder to the hospital district. The hospital district then could hire proper consultants, experts, analysts, whose sole duty of loyalty would be to you and me and to St. Mark's, not someone in Plano. The corporation in Plano also provides the management for St. Mark's. They are employees of Community Hospital Corporation, which then takes that money and whatever else in tax title and carrying charges out of St. Mark's accounts. Community Hospital Corporation does the billing, the bookkeeping, keeps the checkbook. Now we're pleased to have here this evening Barry Hardy, who is the current CEO of Community Hospital Corporation. Like some of us, Barry's been around the block a few times. I like him. He'll be glad to answer questions for you. He's an upfront guy. He calls it like it is. Again, thank you for being here. Mr. Ball, how much of my time have I used? 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Well, doggone it, I'll save the rest of it. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Weed. Ms. Frank?
I'm too short to stand behind there. All right. Okay. Now to hear the other side of the story. It's no secret that the concerned taxpayers of Fayette County PAC is not in favor of the proposed hospital taxing district. However, our goal in these meetings is to gather and share as much information as we can on why this tax is being proposed and how it will affect the taxpayers of Fayette County. Additionally, we want to correct information being published by, say, the St. Mark's organizers and the papers, which is, in some cases, inaccurate and misleading. As seen on their yard signs and the face of their brochures, St. Mark's has avoided the word tax whenever possible. When questioned, the board admitted that the proposed tax rate of 10 cents per $100 valuation being touted in the materials and newspapers is misleading. First, because the actual ballot language states not to exceed 25 cents per $100 valuation, meaning that a new board could decide to start off at the 25-cent rate. Second, state law puts a cap of 75 cents per $100 valuation on these types of taxes. With subsequent taxpayer approval, the hospital tax could eventually reach that maximum of 75-cent rate. So think about that. Also, there's disagreement as to whether taxpayers would continue to be responsible for the hospital's debts if the hospital failed despite the implementation of a tax district. The board has said we would not. However, cited as an example by one attendee was Lee County. Their hospital closed years ago, but taxpayers still paid hospital district taxes until all debts were cleared. The same thing could happen in our county. The board claims that the proposed tax district is the only way to save the hospital. They claim that all other options have been exhausted. However, many feel that other options such as bankruptcy and buyout by a larger hospital were not pursued vigorously enough. In fact, members of the PAC have been told by several persons who have intimate knowledge of the hospital's history that there are large hospital corporations just waiting for St. Mark's to file bankruptcies. It's very likely that such a buyout would lead to better health care options here in Fayette County. The hospital board is asking Fayette County taxpayers to bail out the hospital out of almost $20 million in debt without providing any clear plan to ensure financial solvency going forward. There is simply no guarantee that either a new local board or a new hospital management company can keep the hospital open permanently. When it fails, and it almost certainly will, we taxpayers will be stuck with that debt. So, many of us feel very uncomfortable with the way the board has hastily pushed for this new tax without thoroughly engaging the taxpayers to inform them of the hospital's critical financial situation or solicit ideas for alternate solutions. Of course, we understand that one of their goals is to get approval prior to June 30th so that the tax can be applied retroactively back to January of 2019. So with that, I'm going to let Dan start the questions.
Thank you, Ms. Frank and Mr. Weed. We're going to have a roving microphone out there. Michael Slobach and Bradley Niven will be passing that microphone around. So if you have a question, or when you have a question, you raise your arm up and we'll bring that microphone to you. So who would like to start The first question, this gentleman right over here, Michael.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask this question. My name is John Michaels. I'm from Fayetteville, Texas, my hometown. I'd be the first to want to have a good hospital here in Fayette County. But we need to make sure that this particular proposal will get us one. And so far as I can tell, I don't think the due diligence has been taken. So my question is, aren't there alternatives? For example, why can't we liquidate St. Mark's, sell off the buildings that don't constitute a hospital or emergency room, and seek ways to finance it other than through just tax dollars? That's one question. And is there a course charted out? Have you done any sort of future cash flow analysis?
Well, hold on a second. Let's take it one step at a time here. Your question is to the board, what are the other avenues that have been pursued? Who would like to address that question? What other avenues? I think Mr. Mickens' question is, what other avenues have been pursued rather than asking for this tax district? Mr. Corker?
Thanks, Judge. The St. Mark's Board has been diligent in their research. We have called it leave no stone unturned. There are several people that know we actually had a potential buyer that contacted us probably 2 years ago now. We had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which means we couldn't disclose that. Attorneys here will understand that. We went through almost a year and a half of due diligence, set up data rooms, etc. And then the potential buyer literally left us at the altar. At that point, we hired a investment banker that took the opportunity to review potential suitors, potential not only suitors but potential cooperative situations. So they contacted Texas A&M, they contacted Texas Tech up in Lubbock to see about a teaching hospital. They contacted every rural hospital that was operating in this 5-county area. So all the names that you would know: Seton, Baylor, Scott and White, Ascension, CHI, St. David's. I'm sure I'm missing some, but they contacted all of them. There were 13 potential buyers contacted. Of the 13, 3 came back and said, well, we might be interested. Let's sign a non-disclosure. Yes, sir. We signed a non-disclosure on the 3.
You're not answering my question.
Well, I'm telling you.
The question was due diligence. I'm not talking about due diligence in the past. I'm talking about the fact that the taxpayers of Fayette County are the buyers here. And they haven't been given the opportunity to do due diligence. In other words, when a buyer of a business, hotel, whatever it is, they do due diligence before they even close on their contract. You're forcing us to close on the contract now, not giving us opportunity to do due diligence.
If I could just address that, I thought you were talking about the due diligence done by the board, and that was my response.
You got another question?
Well, yes, sir. In the paper, it reported something about $2.3 million.
Hold on one second. Just wait till Mr. Schlabach gets that microphone back to you. Okay, go ahead.
The newspaper mentioned something about $2.3 million.
Put that microphone closer to you.
The newspaper indicated some debt of $2.3 million, but then I heard the lady say $20 million. But my question is twofold. It sounds like the taxpayers are on the hook for whatever this hospital owes the management company, which apparently is now $20 million. Or are we talking about the debts associated with the hospital? Either way, it looks like we're going to be on the hook for the management companies, the money that they are owed. Is that true? Is it not?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mickens. All right, someone want to address that?
The principal debt is the mortgage, the building cost. was 18 million last June 30th. It's like $120,000 a month. So take another $1.2 million off of that. The entity which incurred the mortgage debt is St. Mark's Medical Center, a nonprofit corporation. The Fayette County Hospital District can take control, become the sole member of St. Mark's, but does not assume that outstanding mortgage debt. The extent of the hospital district's potential investment is the limit of their loss. Whatever they put in, you can't get back. But you're not responsible for the debts of St. Mark's. I'd ask our hospital attorney from Austin to also comment on that, please.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate everybody showing up. Obviously, you all have a strong interest in this. He's right. It's basically two separate legal entities. You have the hospital district, and then you have the nonprofit. The nonprofit's the one that has the debt, has incurred the debt, and just because the hospital district's created doesn't mean they're assuming the debt. There's nothing that obligates them to take that debt. And so, I mean, basically, any debt that the hospital district has is ones that they willfully want to incur after it's created.
All right, Michael, let's get that microphone moved around here. We got a question right there.
So if we are not, okay, you just repeat what you just said one more time? The last question about the debt, the hospital board does not have to, go ahead, repeat that one more time.
If the hospital district's created, there's two separate boards. You'll have the board of the nonprofit, and then you'll have the board of the hospital district. And it's two separate entities. One's a nonprofit entity, one's the hospital district, which is a governmental entity. And the debt's with the nonprofit, not the hospital district.
So what would the tax dollars go to then?
I mean, the tax dollars would go to support the hospital in whichever ways that
If
the
it's
hospital.
two different entities,
Well,
how can we possibly, I mean, I'm trying to understand, if it's two different entities, I don't see how St. Mark's Medical Center could be owned by the hospital district if you're saying it's two separate entities at legal standpoint. You're saying we're not responsible for the debt that they have, but obviously we're gonna have, I mean, it's gonna have to be some type of shared legal entity there, correct? What are we assuming, what are we getting there? What is the hospital district getting?
If you buy shares of General Motors, your investment limits your exposure. If you buy 100 shares of General Motors, you do not assume all of General Motors' debt. Your exposure is limited to the amount of your investment. What would the hospital district do? Provide funds to provide community services which have been abandoned. Wound care, dialysis, potentially a restoration of birthing center upon the acquisition of another obstetrician, gynecologist, and a pediatrician.
So none of this would pay down the debt? None of the tax dollars would pay down the debt?
I didn't say that. The thing is generating money. It's paying the note as we speak.
Yeah, my name is Steve Hillhouse, and I've got a question. Who owns the indebtedness of St. Mark's Foundation, and what is it secured by?
The debt you're talking about is owned by St. Mark's Limited Liability Corporation. The original loan for the mortgage is secured by HUD. And that's the one we talked about. It's just over $14 million.
By the real estate in the facility?
Steve, you said foundation.
Yes. Did I get that wrong?
That's a different thing.
Okay.
Michael can address foundation.
Okay, I think we've got a comment right here.
Yeah, I think kind of what we're wanting to know is if, let's say this hospital district passed and St. Mark's fails. They're saying it's two separate entities. Well, what happens to the debt? Who's responsible? Who's going to pay that? Is it just like following Chapter 7 that fold under? I mean, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, at that point, I mean, the current nonprofit would owe that, and they would have to declare bankruptcy or whatever.
Okay, under the Health and Safety Code, State of Texas, Section 286.104, administration of property, debts, and assets after dissolution. It says that the district does not transfer the land, buildings, improvements, equipment, and other assets to a county or another governmental entity in the district. The board shall continue to control and administer the property, debts, and assets of the district until all funds have been disposed of and all district debts have been paid or settled.
Yeah, and again, I think the debt you're talking about is not a debt of the district, it's a debt of St. Mark's, the nonprofit. It's all the same.
Okay, in a previous meeting, we were directly told by Michael Porker that our tax district dollars would go directly to pay off the $15 million mortgage. So, is that not true?
Sorry, I didn't introduce myself earlier. My name is Michael Porker, and I serve as the president of the foundation that has raised money for the last 20 years in support of our hospital. What will happen with the tax dollars is actually part of the long-term plan that we've been trying to get together that folks have asked about. Paying down debt is important to hospitals. Improvement of physicians is important to hospitals. Equipment is important to hospitals. We brought a number of pieces of equipment from the Old Fayette Memorial when we opened St. Mark's in '05. So a lot of that equipment is older than some of the people in this room. So it needs to be replaced. So those things are all part of the ongoing hospital business. So I can't tell you what the district board will do. The 9-member district board will be from the local community. It's their decision where those dollars will go. We would hope that it would keep the hospital open. That's what we're trying to do. I see this as not necessarily a taxing question, a tax district question, as it is a family health question. So we're here supporting that because we'd like to keep the hospital in the community. The district appointees, which will be 9 members, 2 from each precinct and 1 at large, will decide where those funds go and how they're spent.
I'd like to address this to the attorney, please. I don't think we've gotten a black and white answer of who's going to be on the hook. HUD is not going to let this just ride and go away. If that is the case, that means everybody in this audience here is going to be paying for that $15 million. Is this not true?
No, I would say no. Again, because the hospital district wasn't even around when that debt was incurred by St. Mark's. And so just because the hospital district was created doesn't mean they automatically assume that HUD noted in the debt for that.
I understand that, but somebody's going to be on the hook for $15 million. And if it's not going to be the hospital district, taxing district, and it's not going to be St. Mark's because we're not there anymore, you actually believe that they're going to dismiss $15 million debt and take a hospital that's defunct.
Gene, that's why we want to keep the hospital alive.
I understand that.
Let's don't assume default. Let's don't assume the worst. What people are trying to do is keep it open, to have local health care.
John, I understand that. I'm just asking if in fact that should happen. I'm not saying it's going under, but we have to have some answers.
No, but it will go into liquidation in Chapter 7. And then whoever would, HUD or Lancaster Pollard is our mortgage broker, but it's backed by HUD. They're going to go to the highest bidder, so whoever that is. But the district will not have any control over that. They won't have any choice.
I understand that.
So the American taxpayer would assume the deficiency.
I know that case.
That's why you don't want to let it go under.
Right over here, Brandon.
My name is James Gilliam, and I'm from Fayetteville. I haven't been in the county that long, only 13 years. But I've talked to some of the old timers, the people that have lived here before the hospital was moved to St. Mark's. They said back then it was touted as a hospital that would serve both Fayette and Lee County. Is Lee County also having a hospital district proposed in the election? That's the first question.
Not yet. Lee County was contacted at the same time we contacted individuals in Fayette County, and the Lee County people said, don't even think about coming here, we are not interested at this point. Time is of the essence, so we thought we'd focus on the Fayette County first, and then go to Lee County next. I don't know if it'll be the November election or next spring, but you're correct. When we raised funds, there were people from Lee County and from Fayette County that helped raise funds for the foundation and contribute to the hospital to have it built.
Okay, part two of my questions. At a previous meeting, it was stated that they didn't know the appraised value of St. Mark's Medical Center. Little research on the Fayette County Appraisal District site. According to it, one St. Mark's Place, which is the actual hospital itself and the ground it sits on, is worth $8,293,420. Professional building in some land behind the hospital and to the north of it is worth $2,605,190. 28 acres, well, it's 28.68 acres, that sits south of the hospital and has nothing on it, is worth $258,340. That's according to today's numbers on the Fayette County Appraisal District website. In total, that is $11,156,950. So if the mortgage is still owed $14 million, the hospital is upside down that. And since 2011, property value has gone down for the St. Mark's Medical Center 3 properties, $1,233,390, while everybody else in the county's property value is going up. Why should we buy into this? We're paying more in taxes now, and there's only, I think, 1 out of the 3 properties that St. Mark's is paying taxes on through the appraisal district. Thank you.
Who wants to address that?
St. Mark's Medical Center is a 501c3 not-for-profit entity. The building of the hospital and the land are owned by St. Mark's. So that's why there's no taxes, you said. The medical office building was built by an investor and is sold several times since. And my understanding is now it's a company in Ohio or Illinois or something like that, so they may have some tax liability there.
Question up front here.
Yes, sir. Clyde Holden. Just an observation, there's an awful lot of lack of transparency that I'm seeing from this. This is my first meeting. I will preface my comments by saying I'm in favor of a hospital of some form, the current, not the current, but some form. But I'd like to see, since you've approached the taxpayers to buy you out or help you stay solvent, I'd like to see some transparency before June the 13th. Number one, when you get to how much debt, we even had a discussion about how much debt, and we can't get to the right number. But nevertheless, I'd like to know clearly, and a lawyer can write this up, a roadmap for when the debt will disappear. That should be easy to do. If someone buys us out, this, that, to the other, so that voters going to the poll can understand when the debt will retire. Secondly, the 10 cents versus 25 cents. The cynic in me says we'll be at 25 cents before you know it. The thing is, I'd like to know if there's an absolute drop point at 25 cents and not suddenly just continuing on and on and on. I think at 25 cents, the business has failed. I hope it doesn't, but at that point, what's your plan at 25 cents, but not suddenly just increasing the rate again?
All right, before Mr. Corker or the attorney or Mr. Reed or Dr. Juno addresses that, I'd like to just say about the transparency aspect of that. Ms. Frank has coordinated these meetings on the taxpayers, the anti, if you will, behalf. I think that every time she has had conversations with them, they have been more than willing to come to gatherings such as this. There's other gatherings that are scheduled, as Ms. Frank mentioned, next Wednesday in Schulenburg, the following Wednesday in Grange. In addition to that, Mr. Weed will be on the radio Friday morning on the medical update program. I think the other side has been offered time the following Friday after that. So I want to speak for these guys here. I have not had anything stonewalled whatsoever as far as transparency is concerned. I think they've been willing to come forward and answer questions.
In regard to the note, matter of public record, the note is payable $120,406 per month. Interest is at 3.03% per annum. If not sooner paid, the note matures September 1st, 2030.
So we're about halfway through the note payment, according to the numbers. The accounts payable that folks talk about, there's the mortgage, which John just spoke of. Pay your mortgage first. But the other debt that's incurred is the ongoing debt that any business would incur. So when we replace knees, we order knee replacements from Stryker. They don't give them to us for free. So there's accounts payable there. So that's the additional accounts payable.
My name is Cindy Costello. I have some questions from my patients that I have. They're on a fixed income. Have y'all ever asked them how they're going to pay for these taxes? They save money every month so they can pay their property tax, and then you're going to put another tax on them? How are they going to pay that? Answer me.
Hi, Cindy. What are your patients you're talking about? Oh, okay.
They save their money every month so they can pay their property tax, and then y'all are going to add more taxes on them. How are they going to pay those taxes when they're on a fixed income? There's a lot of people on fixed incomes. They don't have a lot of money. I've got another question.
Let me answer that one first.
Okay.
Sure. Do they tell you how much tax burden they have?
Yes, they said it's too much taxes already. My aunt can't afford her taxes. I have to pay her taxes.
I don't know of anyone who likes paying taxes, but I know of people who complain about their taxes when they go to Alabama Coshawta Indian Reservation. I tell you who needs St. Mark's. Almost 300 people in nursing homes. The buses are there every day. You see, there's another side to it. This is not just a gimmick. This is a providing essential services that people need.
We're not talking about the retirement. We're talking about the people that are at home that cannot afford the taxes. Think about it. Don't you feel guilty charging these people taxes and they can't afford them? And then y'all are going to take the property away from them?
No, Cindy.
I know that.
That's a when did you stop beating your wife statement. Nobody's trying to take property away. What we're trying to do is provide essential medical services to people who need them.
To the hospital to get checked out in the emergency room when Frank was dying, okay? Well, what did they do? They sent her home and said, she's too old, just take her, go home. She was throwing up all this green stuff, okay? After the funeral that night, we had to take her to Smithville, and her intestines, that's the kind of hospital you got. I hear that all the time. You go to St. Mark's, you're going to die.
Right. Is that a question? I have heard people tell me their lives were saved, the lives of their loved ones were saved. I've had other people tell me
not deserve a 10% or a 25% tax increase.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
My mother was diagnosed with a heart problem and went to St. Mark's. And what she was done, she was whisked off to Austin Heart Hospital. We don't have the service here. What are you going to do to bring the service back here so that our taxpayers and our elderly community can utilize this hospital rather than being a Band-Aid and aspirin place?
I don't know if you derived a question from that, Dr. Juno, but do you want to respond to that? I don't know what the question is.
I mean, I think so. There's a lot of stuff. So if you let me talk, you can listen. There's a lot of stuff that we do very well here. And the thing about being a good surgeon is I know my limits on what I can do and what I can't do. You do not want me doing stuff that I can't do in this facility. So cardiac care, what you're talking about, somebody who's having an emergent acute heart attack will get stabilized here, then sent off. I don't know why you want us to keep that patient here where we're not going to do definitive treatment. If every person in this room right now and everybody in the county came to see what we do and what I do, we would be financially doing a lot better off than we are now. But you don't. Y'all hear stuff about the ER and you don't come in. But I don't work in the ER. And my other physicians who work in this hospital or who work in the community don't always work in the ER. So for you to, I get kind of offended when you won't come see your own doctors here because you're fearful of the ER, which I'm totally independent. That makes no sense. Makes no sense. So with my goal with this is to turn this back over to the county and you're invested in it, then you're going to use the hospital. I'm not going to make, any kind of defense of the ER. Things need to be worked out. And if anybody has a case like your mother and your mother, if you want me to look into it, I will gladly look into it for you. So please, my number, 979-968-2700. You give me a name, a date, and I'll look into it, and I will personally, on my own time, call you and explain to you what happened. Nobody's going to tell your mom you're too old, so we're just going to send you home. Okay.
All right, if we could just control ourselves a little bit, let's not get heated here. Bradley, you got another gentleman there? And then if you would make your way over here on this side, Bradley.
My name is Jeff Parker. I have a LaGrange mailing address, live between LaGrange and Schulenburg. First of all, to Dr. Juno's statement, both my wife and I have received care at St. Mark's, and it was excellent care. It did incur expenses, which is what you talked about, the knees and so forth, and we paid for it. We paid private health insurance. So we used the hospital as a business, as it's intended. Now, Mr. Miller, to your statement that we have a lot of transparency in these meetings, they are wonderful, and I'm grateful to the board for doing the excellent job they do. I'm grateful for everybody showing up so we can have this, but there's one kind of transparency that's woefully missing. This is a 501c3 business. It's a nonprofit, but it's a business. It has a balance sheet. It has an income statement. It has a cash flow. If we could see these numbers, not talk about them in a hand-waving way, we could make an informed decision. If we could see the contracts that are signed between Community Health Corporation and the hospital when they came about, if we could see the dissolution, can this be public information? Is there some reason why we, the investors you're proposing, cannot see the nature in the numbers of the investment you'd like us to make? Thank you.
All right, Mr. Weed, you want to address the transparency part of it?
I find the financial statements on ProPublica. That's a nonprofit that keeps an eye on and investigates charities. I find the Form 990s Also, on the internet, they move around. ProPublica has some of those also. I am told that if you present yourself at the offices, you can get a copy of those. My information is independent. Please.
Okay.
You say you've got what?
Are those financial?
On that website? I don't have anything later than 2016. They're slow, there's no doubt about that. And again, that's Community Hospital Corporation in Plano. That's not Michael Parker. That's not Dr. Juno. They have a July 1 to June 30 of the following year, fiscal year. And I think that's used, kind of shove back so you don't get them online. But no, I don't have anything that you can't find.
Does that include, and this is a question for Dr. Juno and for Michael Cork, the members of the board, does that include financials or merely the 501c3 required statement? Question. Balance sheet, income statement, cash flow. Are they there?
I don't believe they are. We filed with the federal government required in the 990s, and I believe.
Can you please reply on a microphone so it can be picked up?
I don't believe that they are. We file the 990s and the other forms required by the federal government, and I think that Mr. Durnell has picked up the most recent 990 that's out there.
Okay, I'm not asking for the 990, I'm asking for, again, balance sheet, cash flow, income statement. Can I see those? Can any of us see those if we want to, by going to the hospital and asking for them, and are you affirming that that's true? I don't know why you don't either.
Yeah, we can file.
I'm gonna jump in here. I'm trying to get to everyone to get the questions answered, but let's do one question at a time so everyone can get their turn. I'm trying to work my way around. If I missed you, I apologize.
We can probably get the audited financials released. We don't normally publish them anywhere. We can probably try to do that. I mean, we don't have anything to hide. We've been losing money for years. And that's why we're in the situation we're in. So, we can do that.
Yeah, on the 990s, the gentleman has said that's CHC in Plano. Well, I got a copy of the 990 from St. Mark's today for the 2017. So, go back 3 years and look at the numbers here. In 2015, revenue less expenses was $738,000. 2016, it was minus $6.2 million. And for 2017, it was minus $1.6 million.
Okay, I'm John McCord from the Grange, Texas, and I've been here 43 years, and visited the hospital a number of times. This past week was another time, and I'm very appreciative of the staff. The girls and nurses are just awesome, really good. But you know, in business, if I go to the bank and I say I want to borrow money to build a new building, the bank's going to ask me for P&L, they're going to ask me for financial statement, they're going to ask me all that before they give me a penny. So before I would want to support the tax, I would need to know what the plan is. How are you going to make it profitable? How are you going to overcome the debt? So you can't do that in a month or 2 or 3 weeks. There has to be a plan out there. I would be glad to support that if I knew what the plan was and what the results were going to be. I haven't heard that anywhere.
Anyone here, Dr. Juno, Mr. Corker, Mr. Weed, gentlemen, sir, what is your name? Mr. Weber. Any of y'all want to address that as far as what Mr. McCord is asking about the plan?
We have an annual business plan.
Why don't you put that microphone just a bit closer to you? There you go.
We have an annual business plan that's approved by the board.
Sir, can you introduce yourself real quick, please?
I'm Barry Harden, I'm the hospital chief executive, interim chief executive. Back to your question, we have an annual business plan that's approved by the board, was approved by the board, I think 2 months ago, and then approved by, CEC board. The sharing of that and the sharing of our financial statements is not my decision. That's the board decision. I'm happy to share anything that the board lets me share. That can be the audited financials, which we have DKD as our auditor. It's our business plan. It's to tell you what we would do with the $3 million if the district gives us that $3 million. It's for capital, physician recruitment, new services, and to pay off the old accounts payable. But I'm happy to share anything with anyone that the board lets me share. I can't do that without board approval. If the board tells me I can share the business plan with you, I will share that business plan. We have one, but they have to give me permission to do it. I work at the pleasure of the board. I mean, for those that are in corporations, boards run the hospital. I work at their pleasure.
And obviously, running a hospital is a very involved institution. I mean, it's not your average business. But the 4 points that Barry just spoke of are really the 4 major points of the business plan. Pay down debt, to recruit new physicians, to help me, Barry, capital equipment that we spoke of earlier, and then provide new services. So as an example, in the last couple of years, in a very, very tough market, and by tough market I mean statewide, 23 rural hospitals have closed in the state of Texas in the last 6 years. And we are going to be one of them if we don't find another answer. But the plan is, with the district in place, that we can pay down the debt, recruit new physicians, capital investment in equipment like we talked about earlier. So we've got those things in place, that's in the plan, but recruiting physicians is an expensive proposition. So without the additional capital, we don't think we can make it go.
Okay, we got some more questions in the back right here.
Mr. McCord, did that answer your question? Hold on 1 second. Michael's got a microphone coming to you. There you go.
I just want to know that there's a possibility that somebody has a business plan that is going to make this work. Not what you done last month. Did you make money last month? No.
Yes.
You did make money last month. How many months have you made profit?
Dr. Gino, do you have that microphone, please? Question is, how many months have you been profitable?
We've been profitable since the end of the fiscal year, June, except for 1 month.
Okay. So I think that information needs to be given to everybody to see what you're doing now and what will change if this becomes a district hospital. That's all.
Okay, perhaps between now and Wednesday night, next Wednesday night in Schulenburg, Mr. Corker, Dr. Juneau, if perhaps you could provide a little more information about a game plan. All right, who else we got now? Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Kristen. I used to work at St. Mark's, and I love most of these people. I can tell that they still work here. And the little crazy person in the back is one of the last babies. I was actually born in St. Mark's from Mrs. Dr. Juneau, and I used to work there, and it was great and everything, but in a management position, I got to see some ugly parts of the hospital, as we all have in our positions wherever we work. And back in 10 years ago when I worked there, we were down to like 5, we had 5 days of cash on hand. So this is not something that's been new. This has been going on since the hospital has been built. And something, Dr. Juneau, I think you can answer is back then when the doctors were not happy, they didn't send their patients to hospital. Sometimes I was in charge of the food. Sometimes we only had 5 or 10 patients actually inpatient in the hospital. I know the ER was busy and we would send trays and stuff like that, but what about the public relations? I know our doctor who's in Grange, who's a physician, my husband needed an ultrasound. Well, it was $2,800 to go to St. Mark's or $100 to go to Bastrop. He took the $100 and went to Bastrop, paid them, and before he got back to LaGrange, our doctor had the results. No joke. I mean, how are you going to get your physicians that work in the county to come to your hospital? And how are you going to get your patients knowing that, you know, the cost is so much different? Thank you.
Dr. Juno, you want to address that?
Probably above my pay grade on that question, but I do know, I've been on the board for about 4 years now. Several years ago, our previous chief financial officer worked with a program called MD Save. So everybody out there can write that down, look it up. It's an online form. So you can go on there and you can write ultrasound, abdominal ultrasound, or whatever you want. And it will show you the price to get that ultrasound done at St. Mark's and also everywhere around you based on your GPS location. So you can choose that. I do know since we've done that, we are very, very competitive with everybody around that. So that is there. So unless you've done it, you probably have never seen it. So you can shake your head or do whatever you want. But that's what's going on there. As far as the other physicians, I think we have I'm a physician, I'm independent, I work at the hospital, I want to support the hospital, I want to do everything there. I do think we need, part of the plan I would like to do is a big marketing campaign to let everybody know what we do, including your physicians, other outlying physicians who don't support us, but let us know what we do here and what we do well. So I'd like to keep all those patients in-house.
Mr. Slomuk, you got a question there?
Yes, I'm Connie Stanley, and I'd like to know, at the time that CHC was brought into the picture, was the hospital operating in the red at that time?
Who wants to address that? At the time the CHC took over, what was the financial status of the hospital at that time?
I was a member of the foundation at the time, so I was not on the board. My understanding in 2010 and 2011, the hospital was struggling. It may have been, like we just said, a good month here, a bad month there, but it was not doing very well. Medicaid, Medicare, reimbursement has changed. Insurance companies, reimbursement and their requirements have changed. You know, when I was born 100 years ago, my mom got to stay in the hospital for a week. Now, when you have a baby, they want you out in a day or two. It's the same thing with orthopedics. Dr. Dean, new orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Dean, we just heard that they're going to lower reimbursements for total knee replacements, and they want knee replacements done as outpatient surgery. So you don't get to stay in the hospital a week when you get a knee, and then go see Gil Henderson to do your physical therapy. They want you out the next day. So the reimbursement has changed. We also have to provide indigent care. St. Mark's as a 501c3 has to see people that come in. Now, some people cannot pay, and they're actually indigent. Other people just know how to work the system, and they'll leave their wallet in their Beamer in the parking lot and walk in to see us and go, I don't have any insurance, I'm broke. And guess what? We have to see it. So there's millions of dollars every year that the hospital has to absorb to provide that indigent care.
Can I ask about the consultants that y'all have coming in, I don't know how often, and what y'all are paying them, and what advice they're giving you, because apparently they're not giving you great advice, or maybe you wouldn't be in this predicament. And also, what guarantee do we have that it seems to me that the board has made some unwise decisions? What guarantee do we have that those board members won't be put right back in place in a hospital district?
Mr. Robert, you want to take that microphone and address Ms. Stanley's concern about the consulting part first?
Sure. Well, I'll address, I guess, the hospital board for the district. Those will actually be elected positions, so it's not someone that the initial board's appointed by the commissioner's court, but the future boards are decided by you, the taxpayers. And so, to the extent that y'all aren't happy or people aren't happy with who's governing, I mean, then and serve on the board.
Consulting fees you talked about? Okay.
I'll answer the consulting question. I've been the interim chief executive for almost 2 years now. And so I can speak for the last 2 years. We've never had a consultant come into the hospital that we paid since I've been there. Period. We brought CHC folks in to help us, but we don't pay them anything other than the $20,000 a month we pay their management fee. And we made the progress we've made internally.
Connie, was that what you were questioning that figure there?
No, the management fee from CHC is $20,000 a month, and part of what are we getting for that $20,000 is, now again, you take it, their expertise on doing these analytics and so forth, that they're presenting to the board and for our future growth and so forth. So we are paying for that, and we don't bring in an outside firm to do that.
I want to commend you and thank you for everybody being tolerant. We're doing very nicely.
I wanted to address the board being elected. I want to ask any of the gentlemen here, is there any requirements in state law that anybody that runs through that board has to have any experience in the medical field?
No, there's not a requirement for that. The statute sets forth a requirement, but as a board, I mean, the board puts in place the CEO, the management company, I mean, the people that would help.
And at a previous meeting, y'all stated that a new management company would have to be hired, and it would probably be in the area of $40,000 a month. Is that true?
That's up to the new district board, how they want to run it. If they want to just hire their own administrative executive team, they can do that. I brought up, again, I was talking in some of my other work just to another management group and asked them, you know, how much were they charging, and it was just under $40,000.
Well, if you're going to elect individuals that have no medical experience, I think you're going to have a $40,000 a month board.
Now, they can elect their own C-suite, so we're talking about chief financial officer, CEO, kind of like the school district hires a superintendent and so forth. So the school district doesn't hire a management team or a management company to take care of that. So.
All right, Mr. Schmalbach, you got the microphone again?
And we've got a lot of people with their hands up, and we've kind of looked at the numbers, so we will get to you, I promise.
Thank you for taking me out of turn. I have to be somewhere, but let me ask this question. One comment. Maybe there's a need to hire a consultant with experience getting hospitals in trouble out of trouble. I think that's something else to consider. But my question is, if you're going to vote in favor of this, do you have a business plan in place that will assure the voters of Fayette County that we will at least have an emergency room and surgeons available like there may be in Columbus with a birthing center and helicopter services based on the maximum tax rate you've proposed? Will you publish that business plan so that when it's turned over to the county, they'll have some type of roadmap to follow to assure success and to save those jobs?
Okay, I think we answered that earlier. Mr. McCourt talked about the business plan. I think next Wednesday, I think the board is going to come up with a little more material. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Gene Carson. I live in the Grange. You know, some of the concerns y'all are talking, there's too many. Well, my problem with my tax dollars, you know, one, you making the comment about people going to Cashado. Well, they have a right to spend their money how they want to spend their money. You don't have a right. You didn't make my
let's go ahead. Let's make a question.
I will. So my question is, why should we entrust the board of directors of St. Mark's, who has mismanaged it, to why should we entrust our tax dollars to them? Why do y'all have so many such conflicts of interest on on the board of directors. I mean, one of the counts that I looked at on one of the 990s, you had up to 9 people that are being compensated either directly or indirectly by either being a contract surgeon, rounding at the hospital. I mean, those are huge conflicts of interest of people that are making the decision. Are they making the best interest in their own? Or are they making the best interest of St. Mark's, the hospital? And I look on your 990 report, and your conflict of interest is determined by the board of directors.
Who wants to handle that question?
I mean, I can tell you as a board member, I serve as a board member because I am a physician, and according to the bylaws, we do have 2 physician board members. I am not compensated for being on the board, never have been, don't sit there. So I'm just telling you. So I don't know.
You're not compensated by the board, but how do you make your living at St. Mark's?
No, I understand.
That's a huge conflict of interest.
Again, as my fiduciary duty, according to Robert's rules, when I join the board, I put on my St. Mark's hat. I mean, you have to trust me to do that. I mean, you have to trust me as a surgeon every day to do what's right by you. And I hold that very dearly to my heart, because I could try to take advantage of every patient that I see in the office if I wanted to, in the benefit of making money, but I don't do that, okay? So I put on my St. Mark's hat on there. As a physician, and I do like this, the way the board sets up is that we do have physicians, because I think the board needs to hear stuff about running the hospital. We're the ones in there every single day. We have a volunteer board, bankers, CPAs, computer consulting company people, and so forth. So they look at me to give my opinion about when capital purchases need to be done, why are we buying certain equipment, why do we need to push the ER or something like that. So I think on that regard, to me, it's good to have physicians on the board. But that would be anybody on the school, whoever gets elected for this, they're going to have to put their conflict of interest aside. And we sign a paper saying that we do that every day.
Okay, Michael.
No, I understand.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over, because we gotta keep going. I'm gonna turn it over to Bradley Duck real quick. I'm gonna let him handle everybody. I promise you everybody's questions will be answered. We're going as quick as we can.
There's an awful lot of good people on both sides of this issue.
I don't know where that's coming from. Yeah, that's a good idea. Go back there because you made a good comment there. Take that away. Don't lose your train of thought, sir.
Sorry about that. All right, am I on?
There you go.
Can somebody tell me how many?
Go back to your first statement.
There are good people on both sides of this issue. We can sit here and give anecdotes all night long about good, bad, good experiences, bad experiences. That's not going to change anybody's mind. It's not going to get us anywhere. Can somebody tell me what's the average bed usage in that hospital? How many beds are used on average per night?
Doctor, do you know any idea, or this gentleman?
On average, we run about 10 to 15 patients a night.
All right, here's the issue that I don't think anybody's really addressing. We can talk about all these small things, but this hospital, back when they decided to build it, was put together by good people and people that had the right idea in mind, but it was ill-conceived to begin with, and they knew it. They knew this community could not support a 60-some-odd bed hospital at $1 million a bed. That was pretty obvious. They were counting on growth. I don't know where they get that. City of Grange has been 4,700 people since the Carter administration. But the problem is that we have too big a hospital. If they had built a 30-bed hospital, we wouldn't be having this meeting. Well, you can't cut 30 rooms off of the hospital. Anybody that comes down that's looking to buy the hospital or take over the hospital, they're going to look at your
dismal financials, and what are they gonna do? They're gonna go back and say, we'll wait till they take out bankruptcy, we'll buy this place for 25 cents on the dollar. The fear mongering that
I need a question from you.
I already asked one. You can,
What's the question?
all right.
Yeah, I thought we could talk.
If you all don't want to hear the rest of what I have to say,
I want to hear it. They should be allowed to talk. That's why we're here. You can take my time.
What is your question, sir?
He doesn't have to have a question.
My question is, why are you trying to save something that can't be saved? Because what you did is you bought an elephant for a pet, and now you're complaining that you can't afford to feed it.
Anybody want to address why you want to save something that can't be saved?
We can't change the past. We have to accept things the way they are. I am old enough to remember in Fayette County when we had no EMS, we had no first responders, we had the old hospital. And the neighbors had to take you there. And your treatment was wait and see. We have come a long, long way. If the hospital fails, we are taking a huge 60-year step backward. And I'm not sure we're prepared for that. I'm not sure we're prepared to go from something to nothing, and where will we go for treatment?
All right, Bradley, go ahead.
My name is Annette Ginther, and just real quick, I do have a question. I work for a nonprofit, and I do have an accounting question, but just real quick, since Mr. Weed talked about not having a hospital, my grandfather founded the first hospital, Grange Hospital, and there was a time when he lived in the hospital because he lost his house to keep the hospital alive. So I do understand the importance, but my question is, as someone who does bookkeeping for a nonprofit, the CH executive up there should know this. Can you give me a round number of the accounts payable balance, not the mortgage, the operating accounts payable balance for the last quarter or the end of last fiscal year at least?
Our accounts payable balance runs about $3.8 million.
Thank you.
All right, I think we've got a question down here in front, Bradley. All right, just figure out one back there, okay?
Thank you. There's a couple of things that concern me. I live in Fayetteville. Number one, since the time I have lived here full-time, and I am the over 65 exemption, my taxes have gone up year after year after year. And now you're asking me to buy into a tax for a hospital district. My concern is I've been at every single meeting, and at every meeting, the data you give us changes a little bit, okay? For example, I specifically asked if you had done due diligence on the hospital going in and Bastrop, and the answer was no. And then tonight I hear that yes, you have a plan. Well, I did 5 years of hospital marketing. I need to tell you that part of that is looking at your strengths and weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And if you don't know your county, that's why we're in this problem. So I would like to know who is actually studying this county. There were questions asked last week about have you surveyed the members of the county as to what we want. Personally, I don't use your hospital because my insurance doesn't take it there. And part of my frustration is that's what a hospital does. They go out and they make contracts with insurance companies. So have you done that?
Yes. We've done a strategic business plan. We'll call it strategic because it's not. We did a business plan, and that business plan has a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And over the course of 40 years, I've probably done a couple hundred of these. I don't know where it came from that studied for a hospital in Bastrop. We have a clinic in Bastrop, but we have no desire to. I don't know anything about that. We also did a community health needs assessment that's available to anyone that would like to see it, where we interviewed certain community members, board members, and determine what the community, the greater primary secondary service area, which is Fayette County, what their health needs are. And so that we can address, we have to do that in 3 years. And we did that, we just finished it a month ago for the 3-year update. That's available to anybody that would like to see it. It's at the front desk of the hospital. They can come by and get a copy of it. It's very, very thick. So to answer your question, yes.
All right, I think we have a question right up here in front.
I have 2 questions. My name is Joe Jameson. My first question is, will the new district, if it passes, have the ability to issue bonds as part of its charter?
I can answer that. There's basically 3 types of bonds. One's a general obligation bond, which requires taxpayer approval. There's also a revenue bond, which doesn't require approval, but that can only be used to build new facilities. And then there's also what's called a refunding bond, which is kind of a combination of both. But I mean, typically, you can't, there's no sort of bond that can be issued to take care of operating expenses. It's typically all basically put towards real property and capital improvements.
But the revenue bond or the general obligation bond could be issued without voter approval, correct?
A general obligation bond, no, but a revenue bond is so limited as to how you use it that, I mean, unless, they're planning on building a new hospital or a new facility, which, I mean, at this point, I don't see that on the horizon. So.
Thank you.
All right, right back there, Bradley.
You had said that the St. Mark's Medical Center would be a separate entity from the hospital district, okay? Would they have their own board? I mean, being as this is 2 separate entities, would the hospital still have its own board as well as the district would have their board? And where would the boundaries be as who made the decisions on what type of payroll was made, this or that? I mean, is that still left up to the hospital board, or is that left up to the district board that?
There would be 2 boards to answer your question. I mean, as it is now, if the hospital comes in and becomes, if the district is formed and becomes the sole member of the nonprofit, then it's kind of like the hospital district's almost a parent corporation. And so then you have the hospital district, if they wanted to, could appoint the board of the nonprofit. So whoever's elected as the hospital board by the people, I mean, they could appoint who they want to run the nonprofit if they take control.
So there would be 2 boards then, correct?
Yes, sir.
Be right back there, Bradley. There you go.
Hi, I'm Brandon Shulak. I'm an entrepreneur here in the county, and so we just go out and solve problems and build businesses and nonprofits around those problems. And so we bring these ideas to investors. So I understand what y'all are trying to do but they ask for 3 things. Every investor asks for 3 things. They ask for a plan. We obviously don't have a plan. They ask for a team. So a comment was made earlier that there's not going to be much decisions, or there's not going to be much minds being changed here. So I'm going to ask a question to the audience on the team. But my first question is regards to the 3rd item is a leader. Who is the leader of this organization that y'all are asking to invest? And then to the group, from a team-wise, who do y'all know that might know somebody that is competent to run a hospital that's here in this county?
Who wants to handle that question?
I guess I'll answer the first part of it. The team of the new entity is who's initially appointed by the Commissioners Court.
Who's the leader right now? Like, if I'm pitching my idea to an investor, I'm the leader. I'm the one that's accountable for it, whether that idea works or not. So who's the leader of y'all are pitching to us to ask for money? Who's the leader?
Hold on.
The person that kept accountable.
You guys gonna let me answer the question? Thanks. The leader is the board, okay? I run the hospital, but I report to the board. So if you're looking for a leader to make that investment, it would be the board, through the board chair.
Okay. And then does anybody know?
I don't know the answer to that.
Like, do we feel confident that if this does pass, is there 9 people in this county that's gonna come together and competent, come up with a plan that's gonna push this thing forward?
Brandon, if I can,
Let me answer this real quick too. I've said this once, I'm gonna say it twice, and maybe 3 times. There is a business plan. We do an annual business plan, that's the plan. It's up to the board of directors if I release that. I'm happy to give it to you, but the board has to tell me to do that. So I don't want to hear any more about not having a plan, because there's a plan. I just have to have permission from the board to give it to you, and I'm happy to do that. There are no secrets in it. I mean, it's not even rocket science.
and we'll go back, as Dr. Juno and I are on the board, there are other members here, we'll go back to the board, see about getting that released. I want to address Brandon's question if I can. The way the state statute is written, now again, I'm no attorney, I'm here as a volunteer. The way it's written, the district board is totally in charge going forward. So earlier we talked about a secondary board. If they want to completely eliminate the secondary board and bring in new people, they can do that. If they want to leave part of it, reject other members, they can do that.
But you don't think there's a board?
But the new district board is going to be in charge. Second part of the question, are there qualified people in this community? Absolutely. We have, in this community, people that have served on hospital boards previously, retired surgeons, retired doctors, financial analysts, consultants. Now, the first go-round, the first year, the 9 people we talked about are appointed by the commissioners. So I can't speak for the commissioners, haven't spoken to people, and I know for a fact as a volunteer, I've had people contact me and say, if this thing passes, I'd be willing to serve. Because that's what it is. It's a volunteer position. There's no pay for those new 9 members. I will stop. Thank you.
Come on up.
Yeah, I want to respond. I think at the roundtop meeting, these gentlemen talked about the big concern they had was they call it the migration, or people that leave the area to go for medical services elsewhere. Part of that problem, I believe, is we have a large number of retirees moving here, and most of their insurance, you can't go to this hospital. You know, I can't. I have to go back to Houston. The Medicare reimbursement was another issue that brought up because the health care has changed, more of an outpatient type of service. And then in regards to the Bastrop medical center being built over there, Ascension Seton is building it. It's going to be built on approximately 32 acres, house at least 8 inpatient beds, 12 treatment rooms, and imaging services. And Ascension Seton is going to spend about $30 million on that medical center complex. So there we have some more competition pulling patients away from here.
That's the 3rd time tonight that we've heard about the insurance not being covered at St. Mark's. Is there, Dr. Juno, can you enlighten us a little bit? Is there anything that we need to know about that?
Again, I can tell you about my office. The one lady who said she was over 65, I don't know of any Medicare plans that the hospital is not on. So I would, if I was you, I would call. Mr. Ken, I think that's, I don't know if you're on a, I know you said you're a retired firefighter. So, right, I'm just saying, so probably with your retirement, your pension plan, I don't know if your pension plan had a deal with Memorial Hermann or something like that in the Houston area or something, so we can't change any of that kind of stuff.
Yes,
all right.
Just to echo what he said, I mean, I think if the hospital, you want to use it and it's not covered in your insurance plan, I'd encourage you to contact your insurer to see what they can do about it, because it's really, that's the issue. It's not really anything the hospital's doing.
All right, we'll get to this gentleman here in just a minute. Let's go right here.
Just a comment real quick. Well, some of those, there is a mile radius on some of that stuff, so you can, when you ask, tell them how far you live in now, and get that checked out.
Yes, my name is Joe Ellinger, Texas. In reference to this whole situation that we're in, it seems that CHC plays a big part in it. How long are you contracted with CHC? Can you break your contract now and get another company to do it? Or what is the real problem with CHC? Why can't you change companies that you have?
Mr. Weed, I believe, is going to address that.
The agreement with Community Hospital Corporation is that if they receive $2.3 million of funds which they account, their financial statements show they have advanced the St. Mark's Medical Center, they will back out of the picture. Is that part of an answer? In other words, there are no terms for payment of that, but will be paid over time. To put it another way, you're buying the hospital back because of money they say they have advanced to that hospital. There is a contract. Now, to your other question, what if nothing happens? CHC stays in charge. Somewhere there is a contract which expires in 2026. Then the hospital would be a free agent again from what is available in the public record.
Does that answer the question?
Okay, Michael?
Yeah. My question is about the bonds. You kind of opened that can of worms. Were any bonds ever sold when this started?
Mr. Corker, do you want to address that?
Yes, there was a government program, and I forget the exact number. It was called like HUD 242 something.
Right.
It was a bond guarantee program where HUD, Housing and Urban Development, would guarantee the bonds that were issued. So Lancaster Pollard was the investment house. They sold about $28 million of bonds back in 04, 05. We actually opened July 11th of 05, so probably in that spring. Again, I wasn't on the board at the time, but the bonds were issued on the public market and were sold to individuals, investment houses, etc.
All right. How many of the board members are bond holders?
None that I know of.
If the hospital fails, are the bonds insured?
Yeah, the bonds are, the loan is guaranteed by HUD. There is a bond, I don't know what's the proper investment term, a bond guarantee fund that was required of the hospital when we were established. I don't know if they're totally covered, because there's an amortization depreciation that goes on there, but HUD guarantees those.
Do any of the board members have a financial gain or loss with what happens with the hospital?
None that I know of.
Thank you.
Right over there, Michael, right here. This gentleman in the black shirt. Okay. All right.
Hi, my name is Betty Duffman, and I'm a property owner in Fayetteville, and I can kind of agree with one of the ladies from Fayetteville. I have one question. I'm still a nurse, and I work for two hospitals that were tax district. One was in Columbus, and when they did the tax district there, the tax district was only for the city of Columbus. It didn't extend outside of the city of Columbus. The second hospital I worked for was Rice Medical Center, which is still currently a tax district, and it follows the Rice Consolidated ISD. So I understand this is for the entire Fayette County, and why did y'all not consider just for the city of LaGrange, because its service is housed in LaGrange.
What was the question again?
Why is the tax district being proposed to the
Okay,
entire county?
why is the proposed tax district not solely in LaGrange?
And again, we've got an attorney here who can correct me if I'm wrong, but taxing districts can be established in any specific geographic area. So it could be City of the Grange, it could be the Grange ISD like you experienced, it could be all of Fayette County. What we looked at with the based on the 2018 taxes, the 10 cents that the board is recommending to the new district board would yield approximately $3 million. So when we looked at the county, while we anticipate going to Lee County also, we thought that that was a good buffer to provide some stability to the hospital.
Okay, I understand that, and I still agree with the one in Fayetteville. Oh, I understand that. I still agree with the lady in Fayetteville who doesn't use the hospital services. And Dr. Juneau, are you still on the board? Hospital board?
Yes, I serve as chief of staff.
Okay, I would like to ask for you, and I'm in agreement with John Weed, I think that people would be more educated, for more transparency if they can see that plan in place, because it's really hard to buy into something if you don't see a corrective plan of action. Because I know when I worked at one of the hospitals, they had a corrective plan of action when they got it away from the tax district. They made deep cuts everywhere. So I think the people would probably appreciate seeing the corrective plan of action to get it back into the black. Could that be made possible before you go vote by June 15th?
I mean, I think,
13th, I'm sorry.
I know you have two board members here. I think we both have, informed our chief executive officer to go ahead and do that. I have no problems with you seeing anything and everything.
Good, I think we
I've got
appreciate it.
nothing
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the gentleman in the plaid shirt. There you go.
Paul Wendell. Paul Wendell's owner. I make money and I've lost money. About a year ago, I had a serious heart attack. Medical center, and they transported me to Houston. They patched me up. My point is, I think you guys don't have your act together. Seriously, it's a perimeter deal. You saw you're losing money. You went and wanted to get a free ride, a blank check from the citizens of the county, the property owners. I asked a question last time or so about taking bankruptcy and filing chapter 7 or 11, but somehow to redo this debt. The hospital's obviously too big for this county. It's not going to work, in my opinion. I urge you to look at taking a haircut of some chapter 11 or so, and then let's go from there. Get St. David or Scott and White or somebody run the damn thing that knows what they're doing. Excuse me.
Any other question? There we go, right over there, Michael. Okay, all right, okay.
I'm Darla Lahan. I want to go back to a little bit of, question was, I think there was an average of 11 beds or 10 to 15 beds a night being utilized out of how many, 55? Or what's the bed count? Pardon me? 65. Okay, so maybe I'm totally not understanding this part of it, but is there not a way that we can utilize those other beds? I mean we're too big for our britches, basically. So how can we make it work by utilizing the other beds for some other reasons? I mean, have y'all looked at doing anything else? And is that even feasible? It's just a thought.
I mean, we have, currently I know like one wing, we do lease or we offer like sleep study services. So those we have been doing that, and so that's something else. It's just not as easy as dropping that number. I know you guys are going to laugh and just think, oh, but dealing with Medicare, and we'd have to, if we lower those numbers from 65 to 45 to 30 or whatever, we'd have to go through and renegotiate all our contracts with Medicare and every insurance company, because we would have to get a whole new NPI number. And I see people just shaking their heads and like, yeah, okay, I moved my office once, and it took 90 days before I got paid by Medicare. Just moving the office. I kept my NPI number, I just changed my address. So again, it sounds easy and it's doable, but it's just not. And maybe the attorney can help.
Okay, Mr. Slavak, you got somebody there for everyone.
Okay, I need you guys to clear me up on something. So if we let the hospital go, do we lose the $18 million investment that we have already paid for? Like, I mean, I feel like we're $18 million in, right?
Yes, I mean, if it went through, right now, if it went through Chapter 7, yes. And you don't know who's going to take it.
And then somebody would buy it for 10 or 25 cents on the dollar. So we lose the other $15 million in value. Is that right?
I don't know if I'm understanding.
Well, we owe $15 million. So if we do the hospital district and pay that off, well, number one, I think that the facility will be a lot more attractive to a buyer in, say, 2 or 3 years after we pay down some of the debt and get more viable.
Again, so when the previous Chapter 11 that we tried to go through, when that fell through end of last year, we hired a firm, the brokerage firm, to try to sell us. Yes, they came back. If we have a district, some of those 13 people that we were talking about asked, are y'all getting a district? Do you have a district? So yes, that, to them, those buyers were wanting us to have a district. I don't know if that really answers your question, but again, like we were saying earlier, if you do this, we start paying down our debt. The district board will decide what to do with their money, how much they want to give to the hospital, how much they want to pay off. They can do that. And if we do fold, we've heard from legalities that the new district is not responsible for that debt. But then we're back to Chapter 7 where we are again.
Okay, the other thing that I kind of want to bring to everybody's attention, today I did a little research online, and Seton has what's called a community needs assessment. It's posted right online for all of their hospitals. And I just wondered if that's something that... Yes,
we have one. We just finished it for this year.
Do you want to put it on your website?
I know it's available at the hospital. I don't know about the website, but I know it is available at the hospital.
Everything should be on the website. Everything. The financials, the P&Ls, the this, the that.
No, well, I mean, I sit on the board, and if you go back and look at all the minutes of the board, I do disagree with our management a lot. And one thing I thought, yes, our website needs to be worked on and all that stuff. So I agree with you.
And that guy back there that was talking about, that guy right there behind the guy in the green hat, he was talking about our community needs. And I really do think that's a very important part of what you all do, is to figure out, like before you hire a podiatrist, figure out if that's what the community needs. I'm just saying.
That is done. That's done every time, and that's part of the business plan. And again, who are we counting on? We're counting on CHC to do a lot of that work.
How are we looking on time? What time is it?
Yeah, Mike, let me just jump in on that too. Finish up with Doc.
What time is it?
Okay, we're good. 7 minutes after 8. Check my Apple alarm clock. Yeah, 8:08. So we do the community needs assessment, so that's available. We have been in financial distress for a while, so a lot of the, I hate to call them ancillary jobs, a lot of the additional jobs, website development, marketing like we talked about earlier, a lot of those positions were cut to continue to provide services, to have the nurses and the room and the clinical supplies that are needed. So that's been the focus. So that's really been the focus. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's kind of where we're headed. The other thing is, there's 2 types of bankruptcy. Again, I'm no bankruptcy attorney. There's 11 and 7. To do 11, it has to be a structured bankruptcy. You have to have a buyer. You have to have a contract from the buyer agreeing to terms. That's not doable. There are no buyers out there. Chapter 7 is the other option. Chapter 7 is Wild West. Anything happens. If we do that under 7, HUD guarantees the bonds. HUD then can turn around and sell the note on the hospital and the land to somebody else.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, the likelihood of someone purchasing the hospital out of Chapter 7, I would say would be very unlikely. There were a couple of hospitals, Rockdale and Cameron, that recently went through Chapter 11. They got converted to a Chapter 7, and both those hospitals have closed and likely will not reopen. They're opening up. They're trying to open up a clinic. Yeah, and so just to add to you too, unfortunately, with the hospital, it can't really sit around for 2 or 3 years because once you're not operating as a hospital, you lose your license, and once you lose your license, it's almost impossible to get back because you got to bring your hospital up to current code. So that's I don't really look at that as a viable option, just in my opinion.
Okay, this gentleman right here. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. My name is Jim Casper. I live between Fayetteville and Grange. I would like to know if anybody knows up there. You say the bookkeeping may not be done, but do you know what the gross revenue coming in yearly, like for 2017?
Gross revenue.
Our gross revenue runs us about 75 to 85 million a year. Our net revenue runs us about 24 to 25 million a year.
So on that, like 75 million gross revenue, how much is collected?
Our contracts, Medicare, Medicaid, bad debts, we collect about 40 cents on the dollar.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Mr. Weed wants to.
The tax on my property would be about $150, and I will say this, I am more than willing to gamble $150 a year on the hospital in Fayette County that we could grow into. I do think it can be retooled. I do think that there are people out there that have good ideas. But if it's going to cost me $150 to have a hospital 8 miles from me, I'm in.
Hold on a second, Michael.
Public record gives the audited financials for St. Mark's 2018. Net patient revenue is a line item, $29,648. Allowance for uncollectible, $3,922,000, leaving $26,521,315. Expenses were $28,131,000. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services reimbursed St. Mark's $671,000 for uncompensated care funding. In other words, because of the nature of the bad debts, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the audited financials indicate, funded to St. Mark's $671,000. Does that help any of those numbers?
I think kind of what this boils down to, in my opinion, is the hospital's a business. If you as a business owner get in trouble, you don't have the taxpayer come bailing you out. I understand it's medical care, but it's a business. And once the hospital district's formed, that tax is never going away. It's there. They might say, well, we pay the debt off, we're going to do away with it. Have you ever seen a taxing district solve itself? I don't think so. And another thing I hear a lot about is affordable housing in Fayette County. Y'all all heard it? We hear it a lot. It is a problem. But now you want to impose another tax on top of what people are having to pay? So there goes your affordable housing.
Just to add something to that, just so, I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with hospital districts, but I mean, what's being proposed here to say the hospital isn't a novel deal. There's over 130 hospital districts in Texas that have similar type that are in rural communities that they're helping hospitals. And so it's not y'all aren't the only community that's being asked to do this. And so, and to answer the question about the tax, once it's set, if the district's created and the hospital doesn't work and the district decides to go away, that tax can go away. I mean, there's nothing that says it has to stay. So, yeah, I mean, Columbus did. We found, I mean, Rockdale had a hospital, they lowered their hospital rate to 0. So I mean, it happens.
Well, I just want to dovetail onto that. The young lady in the back mentioned Columbus. Columbus formed the hospital district years ago. They were in the same position we were. They were struggling, they formed the district. Columbus was lucky enough to have a family that donated multi-million